So Nick, all
Sounds
yours.
good. Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Rebecca. So yes, my name is Nick Lone. I'm the contract coordinator for CobbleStone. I'm one of the legal admins as well. Rebecca mentioned some of the other legal admins, Maria. We also have Melanie Meisner in the College of Medicine, and then Elamar Diaz Martinez over at the Office of Research. So depending on the contracts you submit, what legal office you select, it'll get routed to that specific legal admin. So. Just to kind of give you guys a brief overview of what we're going to be doing. Some of you guys may be familiar with CobbleStone. You may be in it pretty regularly. Some of you guys may be occasional users of the system, and then there are others who have not touched CobbleStone and just want to know more about the system and the process. So. The purpose of this for the next hour is to kind of go over what the new upgrade is going to look like, what to expect come Monday. So just a little FYI, the system upgrade is going to happen tomorrow afternoon. CobbleStone's going to be down over the weekend. And Monday morning, when you come into the office, you're going to see the new setup of CobbleStone. So that's what we're going to show you today when it comes to the system. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen and then kind of just jump on in and get started. If you do have any questions, save them to the end because a lot of the questions tend to get answered during this presentation as far as the CobbleStone system, the setup, and all that stuff. So if you have any questions, save it to the end. We'll definitely go ahead and get into that as well. All right, so let me go ahead and share my screen. And so I get a thumbs up just to make sure you guys can see my screen on my side? Are you guys able to see it or no?
No.
No, we're not able to see it.
All right,
No.
Now it's coming on.
take two. How about that?
Alrighty.
All right, perfect. All right. So this is the new look of CobbleStone. It looks very similar to the production side of things. The color is a little different, as you could tell. Right now, we kind of have a yellow background. Now we're going to have more of a bluish background. I do want to point out, though, when people are using CobbleStone, they try to find where to go to log into the system. So if you go to our general counsel's website here, and then if this is our homepage,
All right,
if
listen
you
to this.
scroll down
But
to,
what I was going to say
I'm
is
I'm
the
sorry, if you can mute your mic, that'd be
UCP,
great.
because I believe I even wrote that down when I talked to Mr. Fix. I was like, gosh, why haven't we considered UCP? Because UCP sees outpatients.
Oh.
So
Becca, I think you can
you
mute her
have a
on your end.
school
Right.
that is
I can't do anything on my end. Thank you. So when it comes to the login process, if you guys are on a general counsel's website, our homepage here, under resources, there's a CobbleStone link. If you just go ahead and click on that, it'll take you straight into the system. UCF uses now a single sign-on process. So you just click on that, it should automatically route you into the homepage of CobbleStone. So when you're in CobbleStone, this is our staging environment, what you see here. So this is not currently in production, but this is what it's going to look like come Monday. So when you log into the system, you're going to see some information here. You're going to see three specific dashboards. These dashboards are important because they kind of house all your contracts. We're going to work our way down and start from the bottom, work our way up, I should say. So you're going to see three different dashboards here, and all of them have a specific purpose. So understanding what each purpose is, you're better equipped when it comes to your contracts, where they are, what you need to be doing if there's any sort of action you need to take. The first dashboard you're going to see is called My Executed Contracts. This is very simple. These are the contracts that you see that are fully executed, meaning that they've been signed by both parties, or if it only requires one party signature. Once that status gets updated, fully executed, all those contracts will filter down to the My Executed Contracts. The second tab is My Contracts. This tab here will house all your contracts, no matter what the status is. So whether they're contracts that are declined, contracts that are fully executed, or they're contracts that are currently in, the review process. So that's where My Contracts, you're going to see all of those contracts indicated here. The top dashboard is contracts requiring my action. This is the most important one because anything you see here means that the contract is currently with you in CobbleStone. So it's needing your action to take in the system. It's not with anyone else. It's not with any other legal office, not with any other department. It is with you, and either there's some sort of note you need to take action on, or something you need to send back to us, whatever the case may be. If you see a contract in this queue here, you want to have to view it and see what sort of action you need to take on it. Okay. Up at the top, you're going to see 4 different tiles here. So to upload a contract, very simple. You click on this. This will go ahead and start the submission process of entering an agreement into the record. The CobbleStone Contracts Guide. This is going to have our step-by-step process of how to enter a contract in the system. So this will be updated to reflect the new look of CobbleStone as well. And then it's going to have additional features on there in regards to what a email notification will look like when you get email notifications from a contract, when a status changes to that record, and all other sorts of information. CobbleStone's frequently asked questions. So this is a brief snippet of typical questions we get on a day in, day out basis regarding CobbleStone. So if there's something you tend to notice or sometimes forget to do, most likely it's part of this frequently asked questions part, that you could feel free to just go ahead and click on it and see it. And if it's not a question there that you see that that can be answered, just reach out to us. We'll be able to assist you with it. And then earlier, Rebecca mentioned Chuck's on this call, so he's a part of the next team. There are frequently asked questions here as well. So Next does review contracts for goods and services $100,000 or less. So they're a team of 3 that work in Next that kind of review as well as redline the contracts and send contracts out for signatures. So Chuck would definitely talk more about like his team and kind of their process as we go along with this presentation. Okay, and so now I'm going to go ahead and start submitting a contract. So this process, if you guys are consistent users in the system, you're going to notice that the steps haven't changed. The look of CobbleStone will be different, but as far as the steps of submitting a record, you're going to see that hasn't changed at all. So the familiarity when it comes to doing that will be the same. So it's not like a whole new revamp in that process. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to click on this waffle icon and select add a contract here, but there are multiple ways. You can either click on this doc tile, it'll send you that way, or you can click on add a contract and it will do the exact same thing. Okay, so the first thing it's going to ask you for is the contract type. When you click on the drop-down menu, it's going to give you multiple options as far as what you want to select as your contract type. Feel free, again, you want to make sure it's accurate to whatever agreement you're submitting. There are, particular agreements like consulting agreement. If that's something being entered, you want to make sure you select that agreement type. If there are other types of agreements like affiliation agreements and things of that sort, again, those are particular contract types that are listed here. If you don't see your contract type on here, feel free to go ahead and select agreement, and then that will move you on to the next process. So for this case, I'm going to go ahead and select agreement. I'm going to go ahead and click continue. And the first question is going to ask me, is this a procurement contract? So like I mentioned earlier, Next reviews agreements $100,000 or less. Anything over that will be handled by the legal office. Okay, so it's very important that this question is answered accurately when you are going through the submission process. So Chuck, is there anything you want to add here?
This question was added in because of our need to make sure we're in compliance with the state of Florida statute when it comes to qualifying companies that we can do business with. For example, the recent necessity to get human trafficking attestations from our suppliers. And this is another way to make sure that we're not embarking in the road into doing a contract with a company that hasn't already been vetted and approved that we can do business with. And so this is a way of assuring that we're in compliance with that requirement. Also, frankly, we need it because once we do the contract, invariably there's going to be a purchase order issued after the fact. That again, we have to have a workday record set up for that supplier so we can actually do the mechanics of doing the transaction. So this is a way to make sure those steps are done so they don't hold up the transaction processing cycle unnecessarily. And you just have to ask yourself, are we getting some goods? Are we buying or getting services from somebody? Then we're going to pay them for that. And if the answer to any of those questions is yes, then it's a procurement contract.
Now, there was a question raised in yesterday's session in regards to, what happens if the vendor is not in the system in Workday and needs to be added, or if it's a rush contract. How can these requesters kind of handle that?
Right. That's a great one, Nick, because it does come up from time to time where we're trying to engage with a brand new supplier. They're not set up yet, but time is of the essence, and we need to expedite the contract review process while in parallel trying to set up them as a Workday supplier. If you have something like that where there's truly an urgent need, and the best thing to do is contact us directly, myself, Brandon, or to Stephanie, and say, look, here's the situation. We can get things started and start the process while in parallel trying to get the Workday profile set up for that supplier. But give us a heads up so we know that we're dealing with something that's got a constricted timeline, and we'll see if we can accommodate that. But again, we treat that as an exception, to the rule, but we're simply doing it as a recognition of the business need.
Thanks, Chuck. So in this case, this example, I'm going to select yes as my as the answer to that question. And for the supplier, I'm going to select Mears. It's a group we kind of deal with pretty consistently when it comes to contracts being submitted to the system. So I'm going to add my supplier. I'm going to add the contract date here. Again, if there's a date associated with your agreement, you want to make sure that that date is accurate when it comes to the supplier contract date. So I'm going to do today's date of, if it'll allow me to do it. All right, I'll just do this. So if it doesn't allow you to click on the numbers on your keyboard like it did to me, you could go ahead and select the calendar icon here and select the date. So I'm going to do 10/10 as my date. I'm going to select next. All right, so the contract overview. So the asterisks you see here are going to be required fields that you need to put in. So the contract title, what we recommend, and it's just a good practice because this will allow you to search for any contracts in the future. If there's some sort of report, or if you want to look back at an agreement that was submitted that you entered or the department entered, this is a good way of trying to find it. So what we recommend is, typing in the contract or typing in the supplier name as part of the contract. So in this case, I'll just put Mears and, trip to, SeaWorld for general counsel. Something like that in regards to the contract title. Any keywords that may come up when you're trying to do your search, you want to add it as part of your contract title. All right, the contract type, again, if you accidentally selected the wrong contract type at the beginning, you do have the ability to edit that here. And there are going to be a couple times you could edit your agreement before actually fully submitting it. The status here, you won't change. It will stay pending as you complete this process. You're going to see your name as the current contract reviewer, and then the contract purpose, background information. So here you want to make sure you describe what it is that you're buying, or describe the purpose of the agreement that you are entering into the system. So in this case, I'll put, similar to my contract title, Mears Transportation to take GC trip to SeaWorld. And if there's any particulars that I want to add to my agreement, say you're doing a license agreement, software agreement, things of that sort, that you want to add key details as what's going to be a part of that agreement, this is where you want to add that information when it comes to the agreement itself. Now, I'm saying this now, there will be an update to what you see here come Monday. There is something that the Office of OICEC, the Office of International Collaboration and Export Control, is going to, there's going to be a section here. This is what you currently see, or not currently see, but this is going to be what is going to look like in production come Monday. So this is a a federal law that OIECE wants us to add a part of the submission process of CobbleStone. Now, I will say, if you have any questions on this, there is their contact information as part of the questionnaire here that you could reach out to them for any sort of assistance that you have. Becca, is there anything you want to kind of touch on or add when it comes to this?
Sure. As Nick said, this is required because there's a new federal regulations related to sensitive data and certain government data. And so in order to do appropriate screening to make sure that the university is in compliance with these regulations, our export control office needs to be aware if there's these certain types of data involved. I know many of you submitting may not know this yourselves, but your see as you scroll through the question that there's a recommendation that you reach out to whoever the contract is for, whoever is handling the technical details, managing the project, they may have the answer and know and be familiar. And if not, our Office of Export Control is more than happy to speak with them and help and talk them through what they're doing and help guide them to be able to answer the question yes or no and submit the contract.
Thanks, Becca. So
Sure.
on our website, the CobbleStone Connection website, so the same the same tab that you selected to join this meeting, we will update that to include the information of the guides as well as have the video posted and a little snippet of information regarding that change there. And then I believe that office will also be sending out communication to the university in regards to that federal law. So, but like I said, if you guys do have any questions, their contact information will be listed on there when it comes to this questionnaire here. So I just
Nick,
want to give you guys a tidbit and some information on that.
Nick, can I interrupt just a minute?
Yeah.
Just to let the university know that we don't ask a lot of these questions just because we want to. We ask and we have certain questions inside CobbleStone because not only us, but there are different departments who have to give reports and to either the federal government or give reports to different areas in which we assist in doing that. And there are some things that have to be in compliance within the university. So if we're asking questions, keep in mind that we're doing a lot of these things to be in compliance. What's up?
Thanks, Rebecca. So the next, I'm going to go, all that my information that I added is good to go. I'm going to select next here, and it's going to send me to the dates tab. So this may look a little different than what it currently looks now in production. There's some changes we made because we feel like it's going to be important for contracts that have agreements that are maybe a year or two, and renewals are coming up, and people may want to be notified of those renewals to see if they want to continue on with that service or let the service lapse when it comes to their end date. So as part of the date section, you're going to see an effective date or event date. So in this case, I think I selected 10/10, and then the expiration date. Typically, one trip thing with mirrors will be the same date, right? So but for this purpose of the expiration warning date, I kind of want to show you what it would look like. So as the requester, you will be notified certain amount of days out, because this date here, you could update and change. So if you don't want to be notified 90 days out, say you want to be notified 120 days out or 10 days out, you have the ability to update that information in the system on your record. So in this case, what I'm going to do, I'm going to select the year from now. All right, I'm going to do 10/9. And then when I finish submitting the contract, when we go back to the date section, this is going to auto-populate with that 90-day out notification. So you're going to see what it looks like towards the tail end. So I'm going to go ahead and select next. And then next is asking me for the legal office. I mentioned this earlier because I think it's important to know what area you're under and making sure you're selecting that correct legal office to make sure it's routed to the appropriate legal admin. So there are 4 legal offices. I'm one of 3 of the legal admins. I mentioned the other 3 earlier. So just making sure you're selecting, if you work under the College of Medicine, you want to select that legal office. If you're under Foundation, that legal office. If you're under the Office of Research, you select that appropriate office. Anything else will be General Counsel. Okay, so in this case, I'm going to select General Counsel. I'm going to click on Next. And now it's going to ask me for some information that I need to populate. So the college division area. So this is asking me, okay, what areas is this agreement for? So in my case, I'm going to do it for the General Counsel's office that I mentioned earlier. If you work in the College of Medicine, this area will be pertinent to you. If you don't work in the College of Medicine, there's nothing you need to do here. The Contract Department Division, this is where you select who the contract is actually for. So we do have users who may work in a specific area, but they're submitting a contract on behalf of another area. So you want to make sure that area that the contract is for is what's selected here, because that does impact and does determine kind of the signature authority process of that agreement when it comes down to the signing towards the tail end. So in this case, it's just going to be General Counsel. I'm going to select that. And then the Requester Department Division will auto-populate to whatever department you're under in the system there. So there's no change I need to make here. And then there's the secondary requester. So Chris and I actually did testing on this yesterday after somebody asked a question about secondary requester. So with secondary requester, this is important because if you happen to leave the university or if you end up going to a different department that doesn't involve any sort of CobbleStone access, things of that sort, you want to make sure that there's somebody within the department who could still get those notifications on the agreement. So with secondary requester, this is where you could indicate that person. So you may have a particular person in mind, or maybe you don't, and maybe there isn't somebody you need to add here. But if you do, and there's somebody you want to add as part of the process of being able to follow along with this record, you could go ahead and add that individual here. So in this case, I'll add Rebecca to this contract. And then I'm going to go ahead and select Next. And we'll go into a little more information on that secondary requester when it comes to the dashboards that I mentioned earlier, as far as where they could see the contract. Because yesterday somebody asked the question if that secondary requester will see the contract in CobbleStone. So it turns out they can under the My Contracts field that I showed you guys earlier, which would be that second dashboard on the home page. That's where that contract will lay for them as a secondary requester throughout the entire process of the contract being reviewed and then fully executed. Cool. All right. So next is the financial and supplier information. So here you want to indicate the contract amount if there is a contract amount associated with your program or with your agreement. So if there is no contract amount associated with your agreement, you will indicate 0. If there is, you want to make sure you indicate the correct contract amount. So the current contract amount is referencing the agreement you are submitting now. So in this case, I'm going to select $2,000 for my contract amount for this trip that we're taking to SeaWorld. The next is asking for an aggregate amount. So the aggregate amount, it wouldn't apply to this specific agreement I'm submitting. However, there are agreements out there that this will apply to. So it's the total amount associated with this contract, including the original contract and any sort of amendment or extensions that are being done with the agreement. So if you are currently doing a service for 1 year and you're working with a supplier for 1 year and you want to extend that agreement. So when you receive that, amendment to extend that agreement and say the original cost that you did with that supplier at the beginning was $5,000 and now you're going to extend it an extra year. Say it's another $5,000 to extend it for that extra year. This aggregate amount should be reflecting $10,000 for the original and the renewal that you are going to enter. So this is the total amount between any sort of the agreements that are associated with that particular like service. Now, with mirrors, you may do a mirrors contract, at the beginning of the year for travel somewhere, and then maybe towards the tail end of the year, you're doing another mirrors contract, somewhere else. Those are two separate agreements. They don't pertain to the same thing that you're purchasing. So those won't be any sort of aggregate or amendment amounts that you'll be adding to each mirrors agreement you're entering. Those are a separate service you're purchasing for that one particular trip. So that's going to be completely different from a service that you're renewing for an additional year or two, depending on what that agreement is. In this case, like I said, it's only a one-time trip. I'm going to select the same amount, $2,000. And then next, it's asking me for that supplier name again. So I want to make sure I indicate the correct supplier that I did at the beginning of the submission process. The supplier ID will auto-populate when we get to reviewing the record. And then the supplier first name and last name and email address you need to enter here. What I recommend is add the name and email of the person that is going to be the signer of that agreement for the other party. Again, not all cases, you may be in discussion with, somebody at that supplier or that vendor. They may not be the necessary signers, but you may indicate their name here. That's okay, but in the notes and comments section, when we get to later on, you want to indicate who that signer is, because this is what we go off of. This is what Next goes off of in regards to sending it out for signature for the other party. Chuck, is there anything else you want to add to this at all?
Yeah, thanks, Nick. All good information. Also recommend or stress that we really prefer the supplier non-UCF party name field to be populated. And part of that is because that helps drive the accuracy of any reporting or searches that you want to do. Earlier on, we talked about if you're trying to search for your supplier. And if you're looking in through your dashboards, if that field is populated, it will bring back a more accurate and complete data set of information. And we use that also going forward as for ways of managing the workload based on the reports that use that particular field. So it's helpful to have that complete. It just allows for the system to work a little more efficiently from a searching standpoint.
Thanks, Chuck. So once I have all my information in here, I'm going to go ahead and select next. And then 6A through 6E, we're just going to go ahead and skip right on through. These are approval sections within the CobbleStone record that doesn't pertain to the submission process, so there's nothing we need to do here. So this is going to just take us directly to section 7, which is the record info part. All right, so the record info, it's going to have my name, it's going to have the date that the agreement was entered. And then it does have a fully executed date here. This will populate once the contract status is updated to fully executed signed. It will now have a fully executed date showing for your record. When I click finish, this is where we're going to see the change in CobbleStone. So a lot of you guys are going to be used to a more vertical approach, how it currently is in production. Now it's going to be more horizontal approach with tabs. Okay, so this is the new look. So in CobbleStone, currently, when you are looking at your record, you're having to scroll all the way up, all the way down. So whether it's you're adding a note, whether it's you're adding the attachment for the record, or having to send the contract back, whatever the case may be, there's a lot of scrolling up and down. Now you're going to see tabs when it comes to the record. So it's a lot easier to find the information you're looking for, add the information you need, and then sending the contract back for review. So the first tab you're going to see is the Notes and Comments tab. This is indicated first here because a lot of times we do get inquiries about requesters asking, hey, what's the status of my agreement? What's going on? Things of that sort. And so a lot of the times we got to reference them to the notes and comments section. What does the notes and comments section say for that particular record? I know for myself, when I'm updating records, I like to keep a consistent approach of entering if it's being sent for signature, who's it being sent to, if there are notes from the attorney, or if there are notes from the requester, making sure that's accurate information, getting it sent to the appropriate party. So this here kind of keeps a trail of where the record is at. So in the notes and comments section, say for example, I put my name as set in section 5 as the supplier contact information, but say I'm not the signer for Mears. Maybe somebody else is the signer. Like this is where I want to go ahead and add that note. So in this case, when contract is ready for signature, please route to chris.johnson@mail to sign on behalf of Mears. So if there's any sort of note you want to add in regards to something like this is also where you're going to see notes from the next team. You're going to see notes from the legal, the attorney who may be reviewing your record. There's going to be notes here from different review offices. So some of you guys maybe are dealing with offices like Information Security Office, so ISO, or even the Export Control Office that we mentioned earlier. So there are other offices that may handle reviews depending on what the agreement is for. This is where they're going to add their notes in there if they have any additional information regarding the contract. So this is going to be the first thing you see anytime you open up a record that's in your queue. All right, I'm going to save my note. When you save your note, you're going to see the note you made. You're going to see your name, and then you're going to see your date. Please note you can't edit your notes or delete your notes. This is admin access, so only administrators could do that, like myself. So your note will stay. There are times where a contract gets sent back and I see the same note, listed 4 times. So the system was doing something wonky and it just put the same note. Usually I would just delete, 3 out of the 4 notes and keep the one there so it doesn't clutter up the record. So I do see that from time to time. So once you add your note,
Do you have that ability?
now you can go ahead and do your files and attachment section.
Well, I mean, he said
This
before.
here is where you're going to add your record for review. Okay, so a couple ways you can add your record. Again, this setup here, what you see is exactly the same as it looks like in production, but instead of having to scroll all the way down to go and add your attachment, now you just got to click on the tab and go ahead and add it. Very simple. Couple ways you can add your attachment. You could click on the browse button. You could go to your desktop, you could pull the record you need to attach, and then you could do it that way. What I like to do is I like to do the drop files here. So I'm just going to go ahead and pull my record. I'm going to go hover over it and I'm going to drop it in. I may have to refresh the page for it to show. Yeah, so in this case, I'm going to have to refresh the page. And then the record is going to appear here. So this is exactly how it looks like in production. Now it just only has its own separate tab. Okay, so if there are multiple records, or if you see a record like this, say for example, you scan a record in and you get this like doc and a list of numbers or whatever the case may be, please update the file name of the record, because if there are multiple records in the system or in the record, it's really hard to figure out, okay, what record is what to be focusing on, what to be reviewing, things of that sort. You can update the record name once the file is attached. And you can also add a little note to that record. So if you are submitting 4 or 5 different documents and you can specify kind of what each document is before sending it for review, whether it's to the next team or whether it's to one of our legal offices here. It just helps the process when it comes to reviewing the agreement. In order to do that, this toolbox icon that you see in the middle, if you were to select it, and some of you guys may be aware of this already, but it's, for anybody who's new or again, not in CobbleStone as much, I just want to go ahead and show you that. If you click on the toolbox in the middle and you select manage here, this allows you to update your attachment name and leave that little note that I mentioned earlier. So in this case, I'm going to do Mears contract for GC SeaWorld. And then a file note says, please review and provide any red lines if necessary. Again, whatever note you want to leave, feel free to go ahead and leave it. Once I click Save Changes and I exit out, I'm going to see that information reflecting now with the change of the file name and that little note that I left for that particular record. So it just makes it look nicer, it makes it look easier for the reviewers as well as yourself, because if you come back to a record 3-4 months from now and you're trying to pull a specific document and you see doc files listed, doc 1, 2, 3, 4, or doc 6, 7, 8 or something like that, you're gonna have to determine, okay, which document is the one I'm actually looking for. So this is just a little bit easier for you to navigate through the record. Okay, once I got my attachment uploaded, I'm going to click on record details. So this information is what you currently see in CobbleStone as the beginning part of the record. So when you log into CobbleStone now, you're going to see that procurement question. You're going to see, the contract ID, the contract title, the type, all that information will be under this record details page. So it has my supplier that I put in. It has my contract title, my agreement. And again, if I want to update my contract title, say there, I want to reword it or change it to something else, I still have the ability to do that. So you're not locked in to the contract title when you first selected it. So if there's any changes you need to make, you can still make it here. Same thing with the agreement type. If I want to change my agreement type, I could select the pencil icon, click the drop down menu, and pick the agreement type that I need to select, and then click Save Record. So it's going to have all the information that I entered, the current contract review, which is me, the contract purpose background that I added, all that stuff here. Submit contract, we're going to get back to this because this is how you're actually going to enter the contract in the system. Currently, we still have, we still get contracts that are submitted incorrectly, and it does impact the workflow process of your agreement. So I want people to be aware of that, but we're going to get back to that shortly. Next, you're going to see the dates field that we entered in already. So you're going to see the date that I entered, the 10/10 field, and 10/9 of next year. And then I put that contract notification to 90 days, and it spits out an expiration warning date. So this expiration warning date, I get notified. If I have a secondary requester listed, that secondary requester will get notified of that expiration date. If I want to change this date, this is where I'll go ahead and do it. So if I don't want to be notified, 90 days, maybe I want to be notified in 35 days instead. If I click Save Record, that expiration date warning now is going to change and update accordingly. Okay, so you have the ability to, edit this information. All right, the legal office, general counsel, and then all the information that I entered earlier, my department, my name, return to legal office, we're going to get to this soon, and then that secondary requester that I mentioned earlier. The financial information, again, if you still need to update it, say, for example, you accidentally selected the wrong contract amount, you still have the ability to make that change here before entering the agreement. Okay, and then it spits out the supplier ID number. So when we first added this to section 5, this was blank, but after we submitted the record, it auto-populates that information. And then the next are the review process that you don't even have to worry about here. So once I look at section 5 and I know, okay, this information is good, this information is good, this information is good, I want to go ahead and submit. When you're submitting the contract for the first time, submit contract here is where you need to go. So when you click on this pencil icon and select no to yes, this is actually going to save the record, and now it's going to move it on to the next step. Okay, so why this is important is because if there are departments, departments that have what's called college division unit approvers. These approvers will get the contract first before it gets routed to the legal admin office it needs to go to. The reason I mention that is if you go and you try to submit the contract for the first time using this return to legal office and you select yes here, it's going to skip that workflow because the system is going to read it as, okay, you want to send it to the illegal admin office that is listed under Section 3. It's not going to compute that there's a college division associated with this record. So you want to make sure for the initial submission of your contract, under Section 1, Contract Overview, submit contract where it says no, you want to change that to yes. Once you select that, the contract is now going to move to its next step. It does take about 5 to 10 minutes for the contract to move from your queue to the next queue, whether it goes straight to legal admin or if it goes straight to that college division unit approver. It will take some time. CobbleStone behind the scenes works on a timer to move contracts around. So just be aware that if you submit it and you refresh the page and you still see that contract there, it works on a timer. So don't freak out that the system is not working properly or the contract is, or you did something wrong to the contract that is not working properly. It just works on a timer there. The fourth tab here is link records. Link records is important for when you have those contracts that I mentioned earlier that deal with like aggregate amounts. So if you're submitting an amendment to an original contract you submitted last year or 2 years ago, we want to be able to see what was done to that prior agreement. This helps the attorneys, this helps next when it comes to viewing, okay, what red lines were accepted in the past, what edits were able to be made on both sides in case there were any sort of communication going back and forth on the original agreement. So it definitely allows for the review process to be a lot smoother if we have this information going forward. I know a lot of people will include the contract IDs in their the contract purpose background or under the notes and comments section. They may include that information, and it's great information. It does allow us to link it, but we want to give you guys the ability to link those records currently in the system. So if you need to link a record, it's very simple. Once you click on the tab, you click the hyperlink that says link contract record, and you're going to see a drop-down box. When you see that drop-down box, you want to select the option that says Contract Overview, Contract ID. The easiest one to do, because all you need to do is select the contract ID of that prior agreement you want to enter. So in this case, I'm going to go ahead and select 44308. Click search, and it's pulling in that contract title, that contract ID number. I just want to make sure it is the correct contract ID and then click on link and then save the link. When I go back to the link records, I should see that link contract here. So not only could you reference any sort of priors if you're doing an extension, but maybe your company or your department deals with meters on a consistent basis, and you want to reference a prior agreement that was approved, 4 months ago, and you want to utilize that contract ID. It's the same way. It doesn't have to be a contract only associated with renewals or amendments or things of that sort. You could also reference prior agreements you've had with that supplier that could be linked to the current record you're submitting. So it allows next, and it allows the legal review office, the attorneys and stuff, to see what sort of communication has happened with that supplier. The last tab is a more of an admin tab. It's a task and workflows area. So this is something that we would utilize on our end. So you don't have to worry about this tab at all. You just want to go ahead and focus on these 4 tabs here when it comes to your record. Anytime a contract is being sent back to you, so say for example, Next reviewed something, they left a note here, and then they sent the contract back under what's called the requester review status. Anytime you click on that link, because you do get email notifications, and our guides will provides examples of what those email notifications look like. When you click on that link, it's going to take you directly to the page you see here. It's going to start with the notes and comments section there. So all you really have to do is when you click on that note, or when you click on that link and you go to this page, you're already going to have that information right in front of you. So you're going to see, okay, what information is being asked of you when it comes to your particular record. On the left-hand side, you're going to see this information that's contract title, the contract type, the area you're under, so that department requester area, and then the time the contract was entered. So if you were to make a change to the contract title, so if I were to do, Mir's trip to CUSA, for example, it changes, and instead of going to SeaWorld, we're going to the Orlando Science Center. If I were to save the record, it changes here. What I would need to do is refresh the page, and you're going to see that change updated on the left-hand side there. So just be aware that if you make any changes here, you can save it, refresh the page, and it will populate here for you on the left-hand side. Now, when I go back to my home screen, here, I want to make sure that any contracts that I have done under contracts requirement action is handled and I route it accordingly. If I see a contract here, that tells me that it requires something on my end that I need to do. Now, if I go to my second tab, my contracts tab that I mentioned earlier, I see that contract I just submitted. Okay, that's my information. I see that the status here shows legal admin. So it went to the general counsel's office. So now it's with them to then move it to the appropriate office. So in this case, it's an agreement for goods and services under $100,000. So in this case, this contract will be routed to Next for them to handle and manage their review. Okay, Rebecca, is there anything else I know we have 10 minutes
the
left.
drop files.
Yes, okay. So on top of what I showed you on how to enter a contract, I showed you the upload your contract into CobbleStone. So if you click on that, it will take you to that status to start the agreement. If you do the waffle icon here and do add a contract like I did earlier, that will take you to start the agreement. Here on the top right-hand corner is a drop files area. So if, say, for example, I want to just submit a contract and maybe not go through that step of all the different tabs, this is another way of doing it. So if I were to take that record that I submitted earlier and I plop it in here, it's going to ask me what type of record do you want to create with it. So here I will select contract. When I select contract, it's going to have the record that I just uploaded, and then the type, I will need to select the contract type before I move on. So it's starting from the top. So addendum is going to be what's selected. So if you are submitting addendum, you're in luck. You don't need to change that. But if it's not an addendum, you want to make sure you select the correct contract type before clicking on continue to add a contract. So when I click on agreement, continue to add contract. Now what I'm going to see, it's going to give me this option here, and we did testing on this. The best option to select when it comes to this process is the omit wisdom option, which is the fourth option from the bottom. When you select that, you're going to see the record that you populated on the left-hand side, and then you're going to see all the information that we did with the tabs all on the right-hand side. So all that information I just entered and going tab by tab, it's all right here. So if you find this process easier for you, where you could just go straight down from the bottom and fill in all the information, you could go ahead and do that. So in this case, I'm going to select Mears. Yes, and then the contract date, I'll select 10/10. Contract title. In this case, I'm just going to shorten it. So just for the sake of time, I'm going to put like Mears test. Add information about your agreement. Those dates that I mentioned earlier here, so you could utilize this. In this case, I'm just going to do the same day. The legal office, again, selecting the correct legal office for routing purposes, college department division. I'm just going to go ahead and mimic exactly what I did before. That requester that I want to add, so I want to add Rebecca's name on here so she gets notified when the contract is expiring or things of that sort, or she can see it in her queue. Contract amount will be the same, $2,000 here, $2,000 here. And so now I had all that information added. So it skips that 6A through 6E. So I don't need to keep clicking next to get to section 7. So once I have all this information filled in, at the top right, it's going to say save and continue. So once I click save and continue, it's going to take me back to that notes and comments tab for this new agreement I just entered. Now with that information, when I go to files and attachments, I don't need to add my file anymore because it's automatically added when I did the drop files here. Again, if I want to go ahead and change the name of it, I can. If I want to add any sort of detail notes to that particular record, I can if I need to. And then you just go through the same exact process of adding your notes and comments, adding any additional files and attachments if there is any, double checking the record details information just in case there's any information you may have missed or you need to add, and then going through the same process of selecting yes to submit. If there's a link contract that needs to be associated with the record, you go ahead and do that here. And then once you click on yes to submit, it's going to go ahead and take that record to the next review, whether it's that college division that I mentioned earlier, approver, or straight to the legal admin office. If there are anybody on this call that's a college division unit approver, just to let you know, your review process will not change. It will still be under the same section that it currently is now in CobbleStone. It's just going to have this kind of horizontal effect that it does now. So let me go back to the home page and I'm going to pull up the record that I submitted first to show if there are any college division unit approvers, to show what it looks like on their end. So under record details, under section 4 requester overview, this is the exact same section that is currently in production as well. So that has not changed. So it'll be the same exact section number, section information, and then now it's going to have that approver person, if there is any, here. And to do your approval, you select that pencil icon and choose your approval status. So if there are any approval, college division unit approver people here, this is how you'll do it when you get the record for your review. And if you're on the call, if you want to stay a little after, if you have any questions, feel free and let us know when it comes to that. But again, the process of reviewing has not changed. You still complete the process the exact same way. All right, Rebecca, is there anything else to go
No,
over? Okay.
did great. Nothing else. For those who have any questions, we're going to stay on the line at least for a good 10 more minutes. So you can stay with us. If not, then you're free to leave and go about your day. Thank you for joining us. It was a pleasure doing this for you guys. Make sure we'll be sending another CobbleStone connection with more information so that you guys can go into our website to find out most of the updated information. But thank you for joining us.
Chuck, is there anything you would like to add?
No, I think it was very thorough,
Okay.
but we encourage all of our customers, if they have questions about the process, is to contact us ahead of time before they get ready to submit a contract.
Mhm.
And we will try to answer those questions, because given the complexity of the university environment, there is always nuance to some of these transactions.
Yes.
And sometimes we'll get them in and we'll look at them and go, it's a procurement contract, but but I'm not quite sure what the spend category is, and we have to kind of sift through it a little bit to figure that out. Because again, we buy everything and anything that you can imagine in this universe in assorted colors. So yeah, it gets complex at times. So, but we're a resource for you. So please ask us first if you're not sure.
Yes.
Okay.
Rebecca, if you want to cancel